Welcome back. I thought I would do yet another book haul, mail haul, as I recently was on vacation down in Naples, Florida, and I was able to go to a couple of used bookstores, get some books, and I also received a book in the mail that I sent away for, and a very good friend of mine sent me a couple of films for my upcoming birthday, which is really awesome. So I got a bunch of stuff to show off today. I'm going to start with the films. So this is from my BFF friend, Mike. He sent me Michelangelo Antonioni's L'Eclisse, which is part of a trilogy of films that he did. L'Eclisse, La Notte, and L'Avventura. And I think it's backwards. This is the last one. L'Avventura was first, La Notte was the second one, and then L'Eclisse was the third one. They're extraordinary films, beautifully shot, very minimal dialogue, impressionistic, mostly about men and women in the world. I think it was done in the '60s, and very influential on a lot of directors. Antonioni was a big deal, it still is. And I saw L'Avventura at the Film Forum in New York a long time ago on the big screen. And these movies should be seen in a theater. Even with the biggest flat screens that you have, they just should be seen in a theater. They're just wonderful cinematic experiences. Then I wound up doing a rewatch a couple of years later, and then I watched the whole trilogy back to back, and especially L'Eclisse, incredible, beautiful films, just about men and women, and their relationships and our foibles. Beautifully shot, beautifully acted, rich in texture and detail. So, thanks, Mike, for this awesome movie. He also sent me Michael Mann's Thief, which is probably my favorite Michael Mann movie. Thief and Manhunter kind of go hand in hand, but I think Thief has the edge. So Michael Mann for me was really the man of the '80s. Manhunter, Thief, and then obviously later in the '90s he did The Insider, Last of the Mohicans, and Heat, of course, which is this big, bomb masterpiece. But Heat's a mess. I love Heat, but it's a big fat mess. Pacino is just unhinged, and a lot of the dialogue is a little clunky. It's a masterpiece action movie, but this is wonderful. I mean, a lot of what went into kind of Heat comes out of Thief. He's a master thief, and all of the jargon and the procedural aspects that go into what it takes to safe crack and to go in on the prowl, to steal things. And then, his flawed relationship with his girlfriend, and, the relationship that he has then with a group of other criminals that he reluctantly works for because he kind of wants to, get out of the life and make a big score. But Khan is wonderful, and Tuesday Weld is in it as his girlfriend. She's really great. It's a wonderful movie of the two Mann masterpieces in the '80s. So now I got it on Criterion Blu-ray, which is awesome. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so then while I was in Naples, I went to two bookstores. I don't know if anyone listening might be from Florida, but in Fort Myers, Florida, which is just south of Tampa on the west coast, these two cute little hole-in-the-wall bookstores. One is called Annette's Book Nook, and the other is called The Book Rack. And they are both in strip malls. You kind of go in and books are everywhere. But it's the classic used bookstores where tons and tons of mass market paperbacks. It's not an antiquarian. They don't have a lot of fancy titles and sort of fancy books, but it's just like a working man's used bookstore. And they're just great. You can just get lost in there. They're roughly, chronologically and subject matterly placed. Anyway, shout out to Book Nook and Annette's, The Book Rack and Annette's Book Nook. For great. So, what did I get? So let's start off with, I got a mass market paperback, Peter Benchley's The Beast. So, I read Jaws a long time ago, and it's great. I want to get a copy of Jaws, like a prestige copy if I can find, because it's a really great thriller. But years ago, there was a miniseries on, I don't even know who hosted it, but a TV miniseries starring William Peterson, who was in Michael Mann's Manhunter, and then later in one of the cop procedural shows in the 2000s, one of the CSI shows maybe. And there's this great miniseries called The Beast, and it starts off on this island, and you get to know the inhabitants of the island, all these characters, and then Whip, who's the main guy, who's a fisherman, lives there with his daughter. His wife has died. And then, there's this mysterious sightings of this possible creature that now these oceanographic people come in. Of course, there's a woman who comes in, and she and Whip are kind of, possibly going to, hook up. But it's great. It's just, I don't know, it's a cozy monster movie. It's like a cozy version of Jaws. You're kind of you're in with the denizens of the town, and getting to know them. Charles Martin Smith is in it, who's a stalwart. So I've been wanting to read the book it was based on, to see if it's anything like Jaws versus the movie Jaws. So anyway, I picked it up for like a song, $3. Then in the mail, I got a trade paperback of China Miéville's The Scar. The sucky thing about trying to collect China Miéville in the States is that all the editions are all different. Perdido Street Station looks nothing like this. Then there's The Scar. Iron Council looks nothing like this. The spines are different. The text is different. The pictures are different. But in the UK, they've come out with, because he's a British author, I guess, they've come out with a wonderfully uniform set. All of his books look the same. They all look good on the shelf. They have the same graphic design. They're beautifully rendered. You can buy them in hardcover, which you can't get in the States. So you can get Perdido and The Scar in hardcover. So Perdido Street Station and The Scar are two of the most underrated and untalked about fantasy novels of the 21st century. Nobody talks about them. Nobody reviews them. They're never in top 10 lists with Brandon Sanderson and Jordan and Joe Abercrombie. These books blow those people away. In sheer inventiveness, chapter by chapter, page by page, what China Miéville does with character and with magic systems and with prose. He's a wonderful prose stylist. So Perdido Street Station is the first novel. It takes place in New Crobuzon, which is this kind of crazy steampunk city that he invented. And the entire novel takes place there. And then The Scar is the second novel. This takes place on a floating city called Armada, which is kind of this, rogue floating city in this world of Bas-Lag. And the whole thing takes place on this floating city, and there's a mystery about it, and there's some, you get into layers of stuff, and the city just comes alive, and the different languages that are spoken, and the stops that they make because the city moves. And I won't spoil too much of it, but it's a brilliant, brilliant book. If you're tired of the same old either grimdark or quest fantasy or romantasy, which is pretty much everything these days, give Miéville a try. And there's a third novel called The Iron Council, which is like it's almost like Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian done in a fantasy setting. It's a tremendous book. So yeah, I don't want to pick up The Scar. Not as nice a copy. I got this online on eBay, and unfortunately I bought it without actually seeing the picture of the book. It was more like a JPEG from Amazon. So it's a little beat up, which I'm kind of bummed, but it's clean inside, and I wanted a nice big reading copy for myself. Okay, so now get to some fun stuff. I found a bunch of book club edition books, which, if those of you who are of a certain age remember that you could once, so there were the clubs of music and books used to be a big thing. Back in the day, you would get an envelope in the mail, the Book of the Month Club, or Science Fiction Book Club, right? And you would open the thing, and to join, they would send you, it was like a book of stamps, and each stamp was the cover of a book. And then there was another piece of paper that had like an outline of 6 of them. So what you did was, it was like, 6 books for $1, right? So you picked 6 books out of that, you put the stamps on the letter, and then you sent it in, and they sent you the 6 books. And then every month, then it was a dues. You paid a yearly dues, which I can't remember how much it was. Every month they would send you, I think you would get something in the mail, and you can pick the book you wanted. There'd be a choice of books. And then Book of the Month Club was very similar, but they would just, I think, send you what the book of the month was, and you would just read it, which is kind of cool when you think about it. Obviously now, everything's delivered electronically, so that kind of thing doesn't really exist. But the Science Fiction Book Club is great. And so my point here is that these book clubs printed their own books. So they didn't just get publisher editions and then send them through. They actually licensed the material and printed their own books. And often the books were smaller, a little squarer than regular hardcovers. And the cool thing about this is they would have book club editions for books that had never made it to hardcover, right? So for instance, Joe Haldeman, The Forever War. I found this there. For what I can remember, I don't know the Forever War ever got a hardcover. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, first run science fiction books, I don't think they got hardcovers, unless it was maybe Clark or Asimov. But I don't know the Gateway ever had a hardcover release, right? So now I have this lovely cover. Did I say Gateway or did I say the Forever War? I also got Gateway. Anyway, they're beautiful. Like they're square. They say book club edition, but the font is great. The text is pretty large, and they're tight. Like this is in really good condition, and it's sometimes this is okay artwork, but sometimes you get really cool artwork. I also found Gateway by Fred Pohl, and this is a Boris Vallejo cover, and now you get a little paperback of it, but now you get this full kind of plate of a Boris Vallejo painting, which is just the neatest thing. And again, it's a book club edition, so it's a little smaller than the average hardcover, right? So I've been wanting to read Gateway again. I read it a long time ago, and I remember liking it, but thinking a lot of it was kind of hacky written. So I've been wanting to reread Gateway for a while now to see if I can get back into it, because I know there are more books in the series, and it fleshes out the world a little bit, so I got it. One of my favorite Stephen King novels, The Dead Zone, also book club edition, so it's a little smaller, but it's tight. It's like tight. The prose kind of goes to the edge there, and you get the full cover, which I think was on the original. I think King's books came out in regular hardcover. But to get a Stephen King hardcover that's in good shape, I mean, you're going to be paying premium. So this is just a little smaller. It's in terrific condition. I paid like $5 for it, and it's awesome. So yeah, it made me think that I want to keep my eye out for more book club editions. They used to do the book club editions. They would do Elric. All the Elric books were put in like a couple of book club editions. The Belgariad was done as 2 book club editions, so all the 5 novels were condensed into 2 books. So they would do that a lot. They would also take, and I think the Belgariad never got hardcovers. The Malloreon got hardcovers and so on and so forth, but the Belgariad never did. So I remember back in the day having the Belgariad in a nice hardcover from the book club, which was kind of cool. So yeah, just shout out to folks out there who used to maybe do book clubs, because it's kind of fun to revisit. Okay, so I also found a hardcover of The Hunt for Red October. Now, most of Clancy's books you can find by Putnam and Viking, in nice hardcover editions, except for this. And I think this was published by like the U.S. Navy Press. Let me see. Yeah, Naval Institute Press, Annapolis, Maryland, right there. And this is the only hardcover I've ever seen of Hunt for Red October. I've never seen new hardcovers with covers that maybe match other Clancy novels. So I found this in one of the bookstores for $5. And it's in really good shape, actually. The pages are very white, but everything's tight. There's no, there's not a lot of foxing and not a lot of discoloring. And now I only need one more Clancy to have my collection. It's not a perfect collection because I don't have it Without Remorse because I didn't like it very much. I don't have Red Rabbit because I haven't read it. But I just need Clear and Present Danger to have the main Jack Ryan sequence. Also, I don't have Patriot Games because I didn't think it was very good, so I don't have that either. But anyway, I have one more left, but it's a beautiful copy. It's very heavy, too. And as far as I can tell, Clancy must have made some deal with the Naval Press because the hardcover rights have never passed to his other publisher. So I think it was something that he did because if you buy, I think the paperback rights were sold to other companies. So, Hunt for Red October, you can get whoever publishes it, Bantam or Penguin or whoever. But I think the sole paperback rights to publish this book still remain with the Naval Institute Press, which is so cool. So anyway, got it. Very excited. I also found, shockingly, in the back of one of these bookstores, Henry Troyat's biography of Tolstoy, and this is masterful. I own a copy, but it's kind of fading a little bit. And this had the dust jacket, and it's very tight, like really good pages. And this is kind of the biography of Tolstoy. I don't know that it's been matched or surpassed at this point, but it's so beautifully written. I mean, Troyat it's translated from the French, obviously, but it's beautifully written. Let me see if they have a translator here. But you can just tell in terms of, translated by Nancy Amphoux. So it's either the combination of Troyat and Amphoux, but it's so beautifully written. I mean, it's rare that you get a biographer author that can really write. Biographers tend to just be kind of scholarly-ish writers that plot and give you a lot of information, and you kind of read the book as an information gathering exercise. But Troy Ott's book, this is such a joy to read. And to have someone who can write as well as he does, and as well translated as, and about Tolstoy, who's one of my favorite writers, it's just what a treat. So to find this in Fort Myers, Florida, in the back of a tiny used bookstore for $5, that's the joys of shopping for used bookstores. And the last book I found was another Lee Child hardcover. This is Worth Dying For. I'm slowly trying to collect all of the Jack Reacher hardcovers, trying to get all the ones that have the same spines, with these little kind of ribbonish spines, because they look really good on my shelf. So this was awesome. This was, I think, I don't know, maybe $8 at most. Really good condition, found in the same bookstore as the Troy Ott. And everything's in really good shape, so I was able to get that as well. So that's the haul and the mail call and a little bit of online buying for myself. I thought I would just get this up so that I can have the fun of shelving these books and making my library, bulge a little more with their volumes. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.